Hi, welcome to Awaken Your Soul. My name is Shannon Hibble, and this is Lauren Cabalden.
Hi, guys.
We're both clinical directors at Akua Mind and Body, as well as licensed marriage and family therapists. And today we're going to be talking about dream and dream work.
I want to talk about this a lot today just to kind of share with you guys how important they are. And this can be something that I also use a lot in my therapeutic practice, encouraging my clients to do dream journaling and in my own personal development as well.
So before you go into that, because I'm sure there's some people out there that are like, what is dream work? Like that sounds kind of like hippy dippy stuff. And so I just want to, for those out there that are the skeptics of dream work, I want to speak to that. Dream work is actually really good at getting to the pieces of ourselves that we aren't even able to access. And so the dream work is the unconscious.
So I'll start a little bit with the science that might be kind of misunderstood, but that's always a good place to start with the neuroscience. So in 1952, we actually discovered two different phases of sleep. So we have non-REM sleep and we have REM sleep. And REM sleep, some of you might know what that stands for. So REM means rapid eye movement. So we have a deep phase of sleep. Our first three phases of sleep are deep non-rapid eye movement. And that means if I were to pull your eyelids back, while you're sleeping, your eyeballs would be going back and forth if you're in REM sleep really, really fast. And research has suggested that movement, which is similar to the movement we use in EMDR, helps the brain to reprocess traumatic or very sensitive material. So it's almost like kind of like a motherboard or a computer kind of reprogramming all the events of the day or your past. So every animal dreams and has deep sleep. But mammals are the only ones that really have the most of that REM deep sleep as a bigger percentage of their sleep time. About 25% of our sleep time is REM dream sleep. As Americans, about 2/3 of us do not get the recommended amount of sleep. So I don't know how many of you actually slept 8 hours every night this week. Wow, you're my hero. So
I love sleep.
Yeah, which is good. And I hope that after we talk about this today, you guys want to go to sleep. I'm putting you to sleep because it's important.
So I believe that dream work is really important because we have a lot of defenses that keep us from actually accessing our unconscious. And we've talked a lot about how the unconscious really affects how we interact in the world. And so even what Lauren was talking about, just the anatomy of also accessing and reprocessing what's going on unconsciously can really help you. And so that's what we're doing as therapists, is helping people reprocess some of their unconscious memories, unconscious experiences that are keeping on getting played out. There's different kind of symbols that actually you can find in dreams. So for instance, if you've lost a tooth, that means something. If you are actually falling, you have falling dreams, that means something. But if you ask your friends, everyone can say, oh, I've had that before. And they all mean something that actually can teach you something about yourself.
Anything that's showing up in the dream is actually an aspect of ourselves. So every symbol, every feeling, every association. And what's really fascinating is that idea that each symbol is kind of showing up in an environment that is actually under the guise of an ego death, because our prefrontal cortex is shut down and we don't have that adrenaline in our body that's fight or flight. So it's the purest form of our unconscious because we don't have that anxiety in our system and we don't have our ego judging. A lot of people think that dreams are just kind of fantastical, crazy elements that come out of nowhere. But really, dreams don't waste your time. Like evolutionarily, there is a purpose for dreams or they wouldn't exist. And they don't come from some dream fairy outside of us. They come from a deeper sense of self. Freud just thought dreams came solely from the brain, solely from inside of us. And Jung was the first to actually postulate that dreams actually came from pulling on the collective unconscious, something that's deeper, more universal. One of the most important questions that I like to ask is, what is this dream trying to show me right now in my life? Why is this symbol or this image or, I used to have this dream of this girl that I kind of knew who brought up a lot of feelings of insecurity in me, she would show up everywhere in my dreams. So I used to think it was just silly, but as I dialogue with her more and I see what aspects of myself that is unintegrated that she represents, it really brings up a lot of my own complexes that I have to look at. And so to say that dreams are just ridiculous fantasies that come from some dream fairy is totally neglecting the fact that dreams are actually our purest self, without ego and without anxiety and without stress.
The unconscious tells us what's really going on for us. So it's important to have a dream journal that's right on your bedside. You can just wake up. As soon as you have the dream, you just write down the notes, and you can even go back to sleep. That's what I do, so that you can have a more understanding of what went on in the dream.
Just the intention of putting a journal next to your bed with a pen can actually start that process, that network in your mind of, okay, I'm setting an intention to remember my dream and make it meaningful so I remember. And even if you just wake up and jot down a few associations, house, mom, ocean, and what you saw, what you felt, all different sorts of sensations and images. It doesn't have to be perfect. I know fragments can really actually be enough for us to actually start the work. And there's actually really 4 key steps I've learned for myself that have helped me. And the first step is jot down all those free association images that come up or feelings. Jot them all down. And it really helps if you can draw a picture of some sort. So I used to have this recurring dream of this ballroom full of severed heads and bloodied limbs. And I felt actually responsible for killing all these people. The first step for me is always, what's the free association? Okay, my first association is Halloween, death, dread, Addams Family. I thought about, thing. And so all my free associations, that is Freudian word association, right? What comes up first? Now, the next step is, what are the dynamics? So what is this trying to show me? Why is this in my dream? So my first dynamic feeling when I saw these like bloodied limbs and severed heads in my dream was, I'm responsible for this. Okay, so because what I did immediately was I pulled down these curtains from the wall in my dream and I gathered up all these bloodied heads and I thought, I need to hide these in the closet because this is my fault. So as I'm looking at the dynamics, I'm looking at, why am I immediately taking ownership of something that might not be mine? And so deep down, I knew this wasn't me that did this, but I took responsibility for it. So the dynamic of what's showing up in my dream is not this horrific scene of just bloodied limbs and heads. People must think that I'm like a psychopath, which is fine. But really what it represented was, I'm taking ownership of this horrific thing of death, of blood, of gore. And it really isn't my fault. Why am I being the martyr for this? So that's the symbolism for me. This is the archetypal level, that severing your head from your body actually is about ego death. And so while that might not be the first thing that comes to mind, if you believe in that connectedness of the collective unconscious, then there might be something there about my need for ego death and my need for control.
Can you explain more about what ego death is?
Absolutely. So the scientific aspect of ego death is what happens when you're dreaming, which is your prefrontal cortex is shut down, really, in a lot of ways, because the ego is how I negotiate myself kind of in the world. And what your persona is, how I show up to others and what that looks like. Ego is not a bad word. If I have a healthy relationship with it, I have a healthy sense of self-worth and self-esteem. But if I don't, then the fullest expression of that unhealthy relationship is narcissism. And then the next phase is the interpretation. What is this dream trying to teach me? And how can I apply it to my life? And in my life, it was stop just taking the blame for everything. Stop doing for others stuff that's not your responsibility. And that points to my codependency. And then the fourth phase, which I really love and I'm really passionate about, is the ritual phase. So a ritual is usually something concrete that we do to signify kind of the lesson from a dream. So if you guys really have that powerful dream that is recurring that you want to work with, this fourth step is really important because it's about bringing it into the here and now. And so for me, I actually painted a picture of that ballroom with all the bloody limbs and severed heads. And I started to kind of dialogue with it. And I have it still, and it's powerful. And instead of it being a scary image for me, it's now become an image that's a part of who I am. And I tell that story a lot. And I had this dream like 15 years ago, and it's still it still brings up all this emotion in me today because I think I've learned and grown from it. And it taught me a lot, and I changed my behavior after working with that dream. So one of my other tips is opt for the interpretation of the dream that teaches you something and that does not feed or inflate your ego, because that would be counterproductive.
So just to refresh your memory, the 4 things that you want to journal in your dream journal after you dream is, first, the free associations. And then second is the dynamics, what you're experiencing or feeling in the dream. And then the next one is the interpretation. And then the ritual. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed our show. And if you did, please subscribe and leave any questions in the comment area. If you have any questions, we would love to answer them. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.